Madam Deputy Speaker, I am grateful for having secured this debate and on this important topic for my constituents and to the Minister for her attendance. And I'm also delighted to see the Honourable Member for Slough in his place. As constituency neighbours, albeit from different parties, we have come together to work closely on this issue for the good of our constituents. I want to talk this evening about the lack of secondary school educational provisions available to my constituents in South Buckinghamshire, particularly in the beautiful village of Burnham and the surrounding area. Burnham is a growing and thriving village which is part of both Buckinghamshire and Slough. It's a unique place, which is why we want to focus the debate tonight on that topic. It is a place where families like to settle for beauty, its community, and its wonderful transport links. But it is a place where children must travel long distances at huge cost to their families to attend a comprehensive secondary school. Burnham is the only community in Buckinghamshire lacking a nearby secondary school alongside its grammar school. This is a situation that is becoming increasingly intolerable, and I hope the government minister will join me and the member for Slough in our joint efforts for change on this topic. Let me start first with a short history to the lack of school provision. In 2019, before I became the Member of Parliament for Beaconsfield, the Department for Education closed the Burnham E-Academy, which was a co-educational non-selective school for 11 to 18-year-olds. This has followed several changes and several challenging Ofsted reports. The school had at one time served more than 600 pupils. As the school was failing, parents were forced to find alternatives for the sake of their children, and roll numbers began to fall, making the school potentially unviable. Instead of serious efforts to turn the school around, it was allowed to fail. This closure was a serious mistake. Yes.
Thank and congratulate my honourable friend, the member for Beaconsfield, for securing today's debate and for her kind words. And indeed, it was a pleasure to join her recently to meet activists campaigning for a new school during our meeting at Burnham Grammar School. Now, as my honourable friend has explained, it was a mistake for the government and Buckinghamshire Council in 2019 to close the non-selective co-educational secondary school. Obviously, the numbers must stack up, but does my honourable friend agree that it is vital to recognise the importance of children receiving good quality local school education, and that it's unfair for my Slough constituents and hers to have to travel at great distances at great expense just so that their children can get that education, and that it should be given due consideration when determining whether a new school is required in Burnham.
May I thank my honourable friend for the intervention, and to say that I think the way that we have been working cross-party is an example of how to move forward past council boundaries, because the issue in Burnham, and just to point out to the Minister, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that Burnham is uniquely it's a large town, but historically it was its own entity, but it is now part of two local authorities. So when you look at the numbers, it is often looking at them through the lens of one local authority or the other, but actually combining those two, working together and submitting a bid to the Department of Education as a joint local authority bid is the way to have the numbers actually be shown and demonstrated so that we can have the secondary school provision that we need. But oh, absolutely.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I commend the Honourable Lady for Beaconsfield for bringing this forward? And in relation to that, does the Honourable Lady not agree that by putting secondary schools out of reach of local populations, you also close the door to character building, to skill learning, to socially imperative after-school programmes, and this all must be held as weighted when considering educational provision. Close a school, lose a generation of young people.
May I thank the member for his excellent contribution and for always making such excellent contributions to every adjournment debate, a true champion for the backbenches, and thank you. And on the back of that, the people who lost out in the closure of this school are the young people of Burnham and the surrounding areas. And what we would like to see moving forward, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that problem rectified. Since 2019, the young people of Burnham who are not in selective education find themselves caught in a situation of excessively long journeys to schools in Maidenhead and other parts of Buckinghamshire and Slough, as my honourable friend from Slough so eloquently pointed out. And it is unfair for our residents. This is having a significant effect on their mental health, physical well-being, and on the finances of their families. It is absurd and an almost intolerable situation. We have a site for a school that housed a secondary school up until 2019, and it is now hosting the occasional Netflix filming, whilst young people waste hours traveling to schools, and this situation needs to change. And Madam Deputy Speaker, just to say, I was equally as robust in challenging our schools minister before, and spent many a time speaking to Nick Gibb in the tea room, so I'm sure that my honourable member for Slough can follow in my footsteps of finding the minister in the tea room to continue to press this point, formally and informally. And I would ask if the minister would consider meeting with myself and the member for Slough jointly so we could take this issue forward after the debate. And at this point, I want to pay tribute to the campaign group for Burnham Secondary School. Since my election in December 2019, I have been pleased to work alongside them and local families in trying to right this wrong. They are at the epicenter of what makes community campaign groups so inspiring, totally dedicated to making their community better. And may I thank the local councillors and the parish councillors and my honourable member opposite to work together to put the needs of our residents first. Let me now set out why the case for a secondary school in Burnham is clear, compelling, and urgent. We know that education is the single silver bullet that can determine the life chances of young people. But for the young people of Burnham and South Buckinghamshire, we are placing an enormous barrier in their way, impacting their mental and physical health from long journeys and placing them at higher risk of educational disengagement. We also know that SEND provision in South Buckinghamshire is significantly underserved. Just before the election, I was delighted by the DFE announcement of a new SEND school for Buckinghamshire. I hope the minister will tonight recommit to that school and support my calls for it to be placed in South Buckinghamshire. It's for the whole county, but I would love to see it in South Buckinghamshire. Hear, hear. A reopened Burnham Secondary School represents a perfect opportunity to provide not only 11 to 16-year-olds non-selective education, but increased SEND provision and a thriving sixth form. A true...
Will friend give way?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My honourable friend is making an excellent speech about education need in her constituency. Does she agree with me that the example of the work done by the London Borough of Hillingdon in the village of Hayfield in my constituency, where an underutilised secondary school has slightly reduced in size as part of a multi-academy trust, and the site is being used now to create dual use with both secondary mainstream comprehensive education and also a brand new SEND school at the same location?
May I thank the honourable member for that excellent intervention as the example and sort of gold standard for which we would like to do and move forward in how we can make sure that there is SEND provision and also comprehensive school provision in our area, and finding dual use for those facilities is really the way forward. And we're trying to look, Madam Deputy Speaker, at every option and working cross-party, cross-local authorities, making sure that we have volunteers to find a solution, hopefully following in the footsteps of Hillingdon, that works for all of our residents. One of the frustrations that I and the campaign group have faced is the loop of accountability avoidance. And because we are on the border of many local authorities, we border London, and we have different provision for our students that is actually different than the rest of London, and we're just outside, but we border each other, and so this endless loop of accountability is often difficult to close. The department says it is for the local authorities to make the case, but oftentimes it seems that there is a loop between the local authority not working together for the collective demand because of their individual legal accountabilities, despite the practical reality that Slough and Burnham and all of Buckinghamshire border each other, and the two local primary schools are in very close proximity to the site. At the Burnham Grammar School, this is proven by the fact that half of the pupils are from Slough. I quote from a recent FOI reply sent to our campaign group. Any projects to try to evidence demand to reopen a new school on the Burnham site should not include pupils attending in Slough, regardless of how close the school may be to Buckinghamshire. This is just bureaucracy triumphing common sense. The campaign group and I have taken it upon ourselves to look at the data and make the case, because it seems no one else will. And I thank the member for Slough for joining us in that and trying to proactively work together to bring forth the evidence of both local authorities for the demand and the need for the pupil and for the secondary school. Even before I turn to the housing expansion, they can make the case for a minimum of 5 forms of entry from the local primary school. We also know that Beach's Learning and Development Trust, which delivers Burnham Grammar School, could take on a Burnham Secondary School within their umbrella trust. We have a site for a school, we have demand across both local authority boundaries, and we have a trust able to take on the school. All we lack is the will of the educational establishment. In South Buckinghamshire, we now have significant housing targets on our way. As a separate point, if something is built on the Greenbelt, be of no doubt I will oppose it tooth and nail, but I support the case for more housing in the right location with the right infrastructure. Burnham and the surrounding areas are growing. Slough is growing. Many people want to move to both areas because of the excellent transport links and their ability to come into London, and our area and population are growing, and the housing demands mean that the population will continue to increase. Buckinghamshire is one of the highest housing demands put on it, more than any other local authority. So to make the case, we will need more provisional places for students because we are going to be building more houses from central government's demands on the county. So on that front, it simply strengthens our argument why we need the increased levels of educational provision, because